Not the rapping and the singing, but I can a little two-step, you know.
Let it loose, man. Show all your talents. Welcome to another edition of the Rashad Mills Show, courtesy of PowerPurposeRadio.com. First and foremost, I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for this amazing opportunity, because without Him it would not be possible. And I'd like to thank you out there watching the show right now, because it's Tuesday night at 8 p.m., beautiful weather outside. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you decided to rock and roll with me, and I'm certainly appreciative of that. Now, speaking of being appreciative, I'd like to show my appreciation to you, my good brother Evan Pittman, for joining me tonight. How you feeling this evening, man?
Blessed, man. Can't complain. Thankful to be here. Thankful for the opportunity.
Man, I have to say this, prior to the show, we were literally just talking about this. I met Evan at Morgan State University Toastmasters, which is a public speaking and leadership organization. And from the very first time he said those words, "What's up, King?" I felt the energy. And then Evan could talk. Evan could talk. And
be real.
Yeah, Evan could talk. And I know I'm a talker, but when you at my level of just going forward and positive energy is coming out, man, I sense something special about this young brother. So we had the opportunity to connect. He has some amazing things in line, which we're going to jump into right now, man. I looked at your bio. It's very extensive. It's actually as long as, the state of Texas is wide. It's as long, so you have some amazing accomplishments already, but something about your bio actually stood out to me. It jumped out. The name of your nonprofit organization, which you are the CEO and founder of, which is the Village on the Move. Tell me about that.
All right. So the Village on the Move actually stands for a vision that's impacting lives literally, aggressively, generationally, economically. And in fact, we are actually seeking to unify the city of Baltimore one step at a time, but through education and development. So starting off in the Baltimore City public school system with in-school, after-school, and out-of-school time programming, and then blessed in a couple years to really get into the developmental side so we can really attack the fact that it does take a village, but to better affirm learning, we have to also better affirm living.
So you're actually undertaking a huge, gigantic, gargantuan-sized task of going into the school system here in Baltimore City and really making a difference. Now, for people that are not familiar, Baltimore has a lot of issues. Baltimore is a beautiful city, but let's face it, Baltimore has a lot of issues. So what has been your motivation to take on this huge task, especially from an educational standpoint?
Well, for me, one, I'm a graduate of Paul Laurence Dunbar High School, class of 2010, played quarterback there, went on and played some Division I college ball at Sacred Heart University, but also got a master's in educational leadership as well. And for me, the biggest thing was to come back home to the city and give back to my city. I actually did my thesis on Digital Harbor, and it was about affecting the overall achievement gap for where talent is and opportunity oftentimes isn't. So we wanted to look at social and emotional learning, centered on the community school strategy and based on human motivation.
So here's a question for you. What is the first, because I think what you're trying to do is great, but I think there's so many layers to it.
Right.
What is the first layer that you're going to attack?
So right now we have two partnerships with Paul Laurence Dunbar High School starting in the fall, and also Patterson High School. So Principal Mays and Principal Benton are both excited to open the doors to the Village on the Move. We're looking forward to partnering with possibly Frederick Douglass High School, Barclay Elementary Middle School as well, before capping the fall off at 5 schools. And we're bringing in integrated holistic pathways to success, like I said, via in-school, after-school, and out-of-school time.
Wow. So speak on this, the generational component of this, because I think some of the things, we actually talked about this prior to the show, I think sometimes some of the things that go on in our community and in various parts of the community, whether it's economically, certainly educationally, some of the things that we're seeing as it relates to crime, it is a generational, right. I don't want to use the word curse, but that's what the word is coming to me right now. It's a generational issue. So how do you begin to put a halt on those generational issues, so we can move effective forwardly as a community? How do you begin to do that?
Well, they say the only way to build for a better and brighter tomorrow is to go back and deal with the past. So the biggest And the most key aspect for our integrated holistic pathways to success programming in schools is the development of culturally competent leaders. What makes us different from other organizations and programs that are in place are that we are not developing just students, but we're also developing parents. So increasing family engagement, and then we're also going to develop culturally competent leaders in the classroom, because we all know that sometimes in the city, they send the best and brightest as far as degree, but they don't understand the mental aspect of appealing and captivating the mind of our youth, and how education comes through culture in many different forms for young kings and queens. So the biggest thing is, like I said, the re-education of everyone. And so
I think you make a phenomenal point, because I had an opportunity to spend about 4 or 5 years in a Baltimore City school system as well. So you hit it right on the head. It is very difficult to use traditional methods, I think personally, to educate African American kids, because part of our learning is ingrained in the culture. How receptive do you think these leaders or teachers will be to that? Because let's face it, they have had a system that's been in place forever. It's outdated. So how receptive do you think that they will be to that?
You know, that's a great question. Our goal is not to come in and to do anything differently than what they're doing. We don't want to change their structure. We don't want to change what it is that they've been doing. We just want to enhance it. We want to expand on systems that are already in place. For instance, when you talk about innovative and creative learning styles and game-based and incentive-based learning, we want to get into schools. So the organizational capacity aspect of it is having a site director and having 3 college interns to build pillars of role models. So college interns, they mentor high school students, and high school students mentor the middle school students, which creates that integrated pathway of success. And then that site director will be there to connect with school leadership and be a buffer for support staff and leadership, and work hand in hand with the principal to know how we can target tutor, how we can mentor, and how we can really speak to the mind of that student. And then once we provide outcomes, measurable outcomes, and and success, and see park testing scores raise, and see national student climate survey data increase with respectful relationships and school connectedness, then we feel that the teachers will be open to wanting to hear from us and say, hey, what is it that you guys are doing differently to help them get that math problem, or to help them to figure out that science project, or that history lesson? What do you guys, or that English paper, creative writing? So we're going to take what they have as their foundation, and we want to just enhance it.
Well, one of the things that you just said that it really jumped out to me is having the college interns, or having somebody there that kids can relate to, especially your high school kids. They can relate to them. How important is that, to have that role model, is to have somebody that I can reach out and physically touch and say, oh, my man is in college, he's in college. Now I understand, and this is actually something that I can do, because a lot of our kids don't have that. And this goes back to the generational piece, that if you don't have an uncle, a mom, a dad, a sister, or aunt that's ever went to a 4-year school and actually obtained a degree, you don't know that that's actually an option. So how important is that, to have somebody that they can relate to say, yeah, this is something that I really can do?
Absolutely. So let's back up a little bit. When you talk about the development of culturally competent leaders, the biggest aspect of that is perspective and exposure. Giving folks who have been where they want to go and sit in seats that they want to sit in, to give them the perspective of what it takes to get there and what they had to go through to get there, and then also giving them the exposure not only to the college interns but to their college campuses, and to different college campuses, and to taking them out on trips and showing them that the world is larger and much greater than your front yard, your backyard, and your surrounding areas. So when you talk about the development of culturally competent, you have to expose and you have to give perspective.
Wow, I'm almost momentarily lost for words, because you actually said something I've been thinking my whole life, that a lot of kids, they're not exposed to anything. So if I don't know that it actually exists, then how can I go after it? How is it a goal for me if I don't know that exists? Just kind of speak upon the perspective of the economical piece, and how that ties into what you guys are trying to do right now with your program.
Absolutely. So what we want to do is we want to provide the opportunity to, because like I said, we're living in a time where as though this generation is 5 cents. So, taste, touch, hear, and see. If they can feel it, then they'll believe it, and then they'll know that they can achieve it and attain it. But until we put it in front of them, the desire and the want to, the ambition and motivation won't be the same. So what we want to do is we want to enhance the drive. And in enhancing the drive, there's different perks through our program, like giving them access to different scholarships, working with them through Naviance, which is a program to link them up one-on-one, with the whole college access and college ready programming, technologically, excuse me. But then also we plan to give out scholarships as well, to students that get through the program with 100% acceptance, and that are even middle school students that want to go to private high schools. We want to give a scholarship to help that be attainable. For high school students that are getting ready to go to college, we want to give a scholarship that'll help that be attainable. And then we want to bring them back, because that's the only way to build generationally, is to bring them back and to not only uplift them by giving them things that make them feel good, but empower them by giving them resources, and then having them bring those resources back to give to the students that come after them that want to be just like them.
As an admissions counselor, what is, and I know it's a very difficult question, but as an admissions counselor, what is the number one thing, if you had to limit it down to one thing, that is the biggest barrier that stops African-American kids from not going to college? Is it limited finances? Is it just lack of exposure? What is that? Because I'm curious. And I know that's a difficult question, because I know that's probably a multi-pronged question, but I just gave it to you in one form. So what do you think?
I think, again, it would go back to the competence factor, because I think the more that we expose our youth to the truth earlier, meaning what it will really take to get them into school, how important the SAT and ACT really is, to getting them accepted into school, how important it is to meet deadlines with FAFSA, how important it is to apply for these different scholarships, not just to look at merit-based scholarships, which are all about academic merit. So your GPA and your test score, a lot of people don't know the true definition of that, but to really be able to maximize your resources, I tell my students all the time when I talk to them, your network is your net worth. And you are only going to equate to as much as those in your circle or those around you pushing the needle forward. So I think the biggest thing is that competency. We have to create and develop more competent kings and queens early to ingrain them, like we talked about before the show, with the knowledge that they can, and they know they can be what they want to be.
When does this process start of giving them this information? Ideally, we would like for these kids, to live that first day on earth. We would like for them to have this information. But realistically, it's not having it. So for somebody out there right now that has a child, maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, and they're curious right now, how can I get my child, even at this young age, to start thinking about college? What would be a suggestion for you?
I would say expose them as soon as possible, especially if you're talking about the athletes, right? Because there's a lot of athletes that understand college, that understand the college ready and college going process earlier, because that's what we put them in front of, okay? Yeah, and that's just truth. But I would say my business is, Village on the Move is working with the 6th through 12th grade population. And we're going to take the 6th graders along with the 9th graders, along with the 7th graders and the 10th graders, 11th and 12th and the 8th, to colleges together, so that they see that experience that the high schoolers are going through, so that they want that experience, so that they're asking earlier how to get ahead. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So I think middle school is real. I mean, even at places like Towson University, where I'm currently employed, Howard University, they have middle school scavenger hunts. Whereas though you can bring, groups of students from different schools, inner city and more affluent areas to come and just to feel the campus environment, right? There's always ways where we can better that opportunity and experience, whereas though we can give them more gems, but just having them on campus and allowing them to be there and to embrace that opportunity is huge.
Do you think these resources and these programs, is it just not enough of them that aren't readily accessible? Is it just not, the media is not exposing this information? Or to be honest with you, and I'm just going to call some people out here, do you think people are just being flat out lazy and they're not hungry enough and they don't have a strong enough desire to go after this information to better assist their kids?
So to be honest, it's a mixture of all of them.
Okay.
And I can break that down for you. So let's go from bottom to the top. So when we talked about a 5-cent generation, that leads to instant gratification. So if things are not in our hands, we don't want to work for it anymore. We've lost the yearning to go and get it. We've lost the yearning to be proactive with life instead of being reactive. A lot of students come to me and want to react after they haven't gotten in school, or want to react after they've missed the admissions deadline, when I've been communicating with you the whole time. But then, specifically for our youth, is media doing all they can to express what avenues of funding and financial assistance we have specifically for our youth? Absolutely not. I don't think so, because I actually went and created a list this year of scholarships that pertain specifically to minorities, and I developed that list just to give to my students at school because no one else is going to do it.
Wow. So let me actually stop you right there. You still have access to this list, right?
Yes.
If there's somebody out there watching right now that wants to have that resource available, which sounds like an amazing resource, how could they or can they actually have access to that information that you have?
Absolutely. So what I did was I did a Google search, and I developed as many different sites as I could. I think there's one site that lists over 1,000 minority-driven scholarships. There's one site that lists over 200 scholarships that are just for African-American students. But anybody can contact me. Listen, it takes a village. I believe that. And anybody who wants to shoot me an email at evanjpittman@gmail.com or epittman@towson.edu, I'll be sure to send that list on over. And I'm not promising that all of it is up to date, but it will put you in the right direction to get everything that's up to date and to get the things that are updated for the knowledge and for the increase of it, the want to be able to do it.
So for somebody out there watching right now, powerpurposeradio.com, a Facebook family as well. Evan just provided an amazing resource. He provided his information, and he is more than willing to help. So if you contact me after the show, by all means, I will put you in contact with Evan to make sure that you have access to that information, because I think it's very important. So Evan, I want to kind of ask you this question now. We talked about African American students. Would you kind of guide somebody in terms of HBCU or as opposed to a non-HBCU?
It's funny that you asked that question, because before I went to work at a predominantly white institution, which is what we classify them as, Towson University. I worked at West Virginia State University, which is an HBCU, but a lot of people wouldn't know it. And the purpose, it was all strategic, to be honest with you, on my pursuit for professional excellence, because I really wanted to see the differences. I wanted to see where the HBCU was maybe falling behind or falling short, because I feel like the HBCU has enough history and enough credibility to be able to be in the same conversation. Not Howard as a mecca for HBCUs, but Howard as a great academic institution. Hampton Institute is a great academic institution. And what I've come to find is just that I think that HBCUs get too caught up in tradition. And I think that's the same thing as culture. I think we get so caught up in what we're used to that we do not allow ourselves to step outside of the box, to be open to something new that will put us ahead. So, of course, I'm going to tell all my students, to look into your HBCUs, to be educated on the HBCUs, and to go to the HBCUs. But I think that's the only thing that the PWI has a leg up on with HBCUs. A lot of HBCUs are still doing paper applications.
Wow, are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
2017?
Oh, yeah. Whereas though the predominantly white institutions are running everything through the internet. I'm talking, we run things through operating systems, and we get it done like that. And because we get it done like that, we're more punctual with getting answers back, and we're more professional, or that's what it seems, right? So I think that there's nothing against the HBCU. As a matter of fact, I want to get into consulting to be able to enhance culture and leadership at HBCUs, to be able to restore accreditation and to figure out where this money is going wrong. So I love my HBCUs. I've taught at HBCU. I signed my first football scholarship to play quarterback at Howard University. I was there first, Me working at Towson does not define my thought processes when it comes to the HBCUs.
Wow, so I just got to go back. Just for clarity purposes only, some HBCUs in 2017, there is still a paper application.
There was one at West Virginia State University.
Wow.
But see,
and it's not a knock against West Virginia State University, or certainly any HBCUs. I just think that in itself can become a slight turnoff for somebody that's potentially interested in that school, because again, we live in this microwave society, this microwave generation, where we want everything literally to happen yesterday.
Right.
And the thought of completing the paper application, I think that's a complete turnoff for a kid that's interested in the school.
And then the money it costs to send it, FedEx or UPS, or get it expedited to get it there on time, and then the file cabinets, right? So the biggest thing that people talk about with HBCUs is unprofessionalism or uncanniness with time. It's because 9 times out of 10 we looking for paper. When I was at Howard, we lost all my transcripts. Lost everything. I didn't know what class I was going to, anything, but I loved that institution.
Oh, wow. That says a whole lot. Let me just go back to the very beginning of this conversation, the village on the move, and the people that are watching powerpurposeradio.com and Facebook Live as well. You don't know that Evan's parents are in the studio with him. And when I opened up the show, I just kind of talked about that because I felt something so special. Even when you told me that, is it okay for my mom and dad to come? Absolutely. It's just, I felt something special about that and have the energy. So you're a very successful young man. How much of your success has been dictated by the presence of two strong parents in your life?
Well, listen,
Because
man.
we're talking about this whole village idea. We're talking about education. We're talking about a community, this development. So what has that been for you?
Listen, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to kind of go back to do what you did at the beginning of the show, because I think there's a couple shout-outs that need to be given when you talk about the reason why I'm here. So it's first giving honor and glory to God, who's the author and the finisher of my faith, because without him it wouldn't be possible. But then it's having two parents that have led by example, that walk by faith and grow in grace daily and help me understand what it means, to not only be a man, but how to lead, and then how to build generationally, because, there's two more of me. I have an older sister and an older brother that have never had to want for anything. Not to say that we've always had it perfect, but my parents made sure that we never struggled for anything. And then, my lady, Angela Renee Knight, who drives me crazy but pushes me to be the best me I can be at all times. I love you to death, my future wife. And then our 12-year-old, Amaria Renaya Knight. So those right there are the pieces to the puzzle that drive me to want to be more. Because I know that there's children like, your two twins, and, Amaria, who's getting ready to be 12 next week, and I know how my parents cried for me, how they wept for me, when I was lost and when I was caught up doing things, wanting to be accepted instead of being who I was. So for me, it's always a privilege to be able to have them here in good health, to be able to see, me live out the will of God, but that was put forth through them.
That was powerful, man. Man, you gave me a lot of one-liners that I might just put on T-shirts next week and just sell them. I mean, seriously, man, I split the profits 50-50. So here's my next question to follow up to that one. So if you're working with a young man and didn't have that family support, how do you approach him? How do you approach that young man that's interested in potentially going to college? He didn't see an example of mom or dad or sister, anybody in the family going to college. Does that alter your approach as you work with him, or how do you begin that process of just building that rapport with him?
It doesn't, because there's other ways in which you can relate to an individual. Okay, there's a lot of things that I've done in my life that I'm not proud of, but that were necessary to get me to where I am. But then also there's a lot of things that I've been exposed to that other young men and women would like the exposure to. I think the biggest piece is hearing them. We have to hear the voice of our youth. They are the leaders of the future, and if we do not listen to them, then we are shortchanging our own success, because we're battling against them instead of partnering with them. And I think that hearing them allows me to be able to relate, because they'll tell you what they want. Absolutely. They'll tell you what they don't want. They'll tell you what works for them. They'll tell you what they like, what they don't like. So just being open, open-eared. My dad always told me, because I was quick-tongued. My dad always told me, he said, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth.
For a reason.
For a reason,
Absolutely.
So for me, it's always been about just hearing from them. I listen to them. When I come in the room, I tell them, we're not talking about Towson. I want to know what's your why and who you are. Because once I know that, then you can see who I am, and then we'll be able to build a rapport for you to believe in me. Because if you don't believe in me, just like if I don't believe in you, so make sure you shake my hand and look me in the eye, then we can't do business. And we have to help them understand what business is early.
Man, I think you said a critical point by answering that question about simply listening to our young people. Yeah. Our young people, period, especially our young African-American men, they just need a set of ears. They need somebody to know Mr. Pittman cares about me. Just simply because he sat down and he listened, an unbiased set of ears, he listened. So I think that is critical. Parents, if you're out there watching right now, please, by all means, when your young people enter your homes or apartments, whatever, however you see them on a daily basis, please dedicate some time to simply listening to them. For my kids, is once they get in the car, that radio doesn't come on. Nothing comes on because the words that come out of your mouth are at the maximum level of importance to me as your father. I need to hear what went on with your day. So that was a great answer to that question.
And tell them you love them.
Absolutely.
Every group of students I speak to before I leave the room, I tell them I love them. I tell them I love them when I get into the room, and I tell them I love them before I leave, because that may be the only time they hear that.
Wow.
That may be the only time they hear that. And you got to mean it. You can't tell them you love them and start blinking or looking down. You got to captivate that audience and say, listen, young king, young queen, I love you. And I want you to be successful, and you can do any and everything that you want to do.
I know why you said it, but let me ask you this question so people that are watching, they can get filled with this information, because I know you're going to give me a dynamic response. Why do you use the term kings and queens when you actually speak to people?
Because you talked about generational. So we have to understand where we come from. We have to understand what we were born as. We have to understand who God created us to be. Okay, and I'm not gonna get
No,
too
go.
biblical or
No,
scriptural,
no,
but
man,
listen,
go.
but listen,
Go
and
for
but
it.
listen, and understanding that you have to understand that we were created to rule the earth. So why would you settle for anything less? Why would you settle to be my nigga, or talk down to a female, or be anything but great and anything but the best? That's something that has to be ingrained at a young age. Because if we don't ingrain it early, then they'll be ingrained by society. They'll be ingrained by the perception of what our culture is, or the vision and the brand of what certain folks think our culture was created to be, animalistic and barbaric. No, no, no. We are kings and queens. Please believe that.
Wow, Evan, let me just use the next few seconds to interact with people on Facebook Live. Jacqueline Shaw, she said, do you share, I'm trying to read it, do you share your past struggles with your youth?
Absolutely. You got to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is a part of healing. Vulnerability is also a part of deliverance. So when you talk about building a better relationship with the youth, you got to become one with self. And that's spiritual as well. Doesn't matter what you believe in or who you pray to, but you have to be one with self to be able to deliver and heal somebody else.
Right. Jacqueline made another great point. She said, we are from a royal priesthood. Absolutely. Absolutely. So
She better preach.
Yeah, she does.
She better preach.
You continue to preach, man. I was feeling it. I was ready to just tell mom and dad, let's pass around the plate.
Oh, no.
I got 10% on you, man. I was actually feeling it. I just love having positive people and positive energy around me. We are approaching the end of the show, which, like I told you, Preston, I told you, man, it's the fastest half an hour. But when you're in the spirit, literally in the spirit, you're working with good people, time literally just flies by. I'm going to put you on the spot in a good way, which I do with all of my guests. At the end of every show, I do what I would call rapid fire. So I literally ask you a question. I just need your fastest response.
Ooh,
So
okay.
This is pretty easy. This is pretty easy. I know you're a very sharp brother. So prior to the show, we talked about affirmations. A shout out to Rashad statement. We talked about an activity that we would do with young men. Who are you? Where we look into your soul to ask, who are you? And we expect positive affirmations. So I'm going to give you 5 to 7 who are yous, and you give me the first word that comes out that most accurately describes Evan Pittman.
Okay.
Are you ready? You accept the challenge.
I accept the challenge.
Who are you?
A king.
Who are you?
A man of God.
Who are you?
A man.
Who are you?
A leader.
Who are you?
A CEO.
Who is Evan Pittman?
Future president of the United States of America.
Wow. I think that's it. That's why I have sharp brothers around me. So if you have a young man, a young woman in your life, I think that exercise is something that literally takes 10 seconds, but I think it's powerful because it begins to put them in the mind frame of having positive affirmations about who they are as a person, and not how ESPN or BET or any other form of entertainment tries to put them in this mold and shape them. So I think that is it's so critical that you ask that question to your young people. So before we end the show, another opportunity to go ahead and tell people about what you have going on with Village on the Move, and just kind of tell people if they want to partner with you, by all means. I'm sure,
Absolutely.
I don't think Evan's going to turn down any capital that's going to help what he's doing right now, and any resources as well. So if you want to partner with him, or help him out in any way.
Absolutely. So I'm going to keep it really brief. Like we talked about before, VOM Inc., short for Village on the Move Incorporated, a vision that's impacting lives literally, aggressively, generationally, economically. Please check us out on Instagram at VillageOTM or online at www.thevillageonthemove.org. You can shoot me an email at evan@villageonthemove.org. I mean, let's just talk. Please go check out what we're doing. If you believe in it, if you want to support it, if you want to see it through, if you want to help us go forward, we're all open for it.
Wow, that's positive, and you can't see him, but Dad is in the corner. Dad is saying, So Dad is like literally saying, that's Dad's way of saying, that's my boy. He came in and did it. He came in and did it. So I know Dad and Mom are extremely proud of you. And Chloe Mills, if you just want to hurry up, come on, Chloe. This is one half of my fabulous twins. They just turned 8 on this past Friday. So Kennedy, I called you your sister's name. Go ahead and close us out. Just telling everybody you will see us back here next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.
All right, that's the perfect way to end the show. PowerPurposeRadio.com. Rashad Mills. I will see you next Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Thank you so much for joining me. Wow. Go over and get the hat and say,
Evan